Hello, it's Denise from Women Beyond a Certain Age. Once in a while, we get lucky and a wonderful, wonderful firm sends us guests. So our guest today is someone I don't know. Her name is Mikelann Valterra, but here's the reason I'm excited. And I know people get tired of hearing me say I'm excited because I say that every time, but I truly am excited. Mikelann is a financial coach and for women. Mikelann, hello. Good morning. How are you?
Hello from Seattle. I'm so happy to be here.
Now, I'm going to tell you, your bio is very impressive. I'm going to just read this part of it. Mikelann is an author, a keynote speaker, and a money coach who helps women transform their relationship with money to create a life they love. Now, that's pretty impressive. And you've been doing it for 20 years. And your credentials, of course, are extraordinary. Now, let me tell you, I'm so grateful you spare time. I know you're busy. And I'm going to ask you how you got started in this. And then we have other questions to ask you. But I just know this for me in my age group. I hope that women are getting more information, meaning younger women, about money and how to transform their lives earlier in life, okay? And the reason is I'm 71, Mikelann, and I came from a household where my mother did not have any financial say, responsibility, okay, nothing. My father made the money. My mother ran the house. My mother did not work. My father did really well, but I need to tell you, and we'll start with this, the reason why. When my father died and we read the will, my sisters and I had already been told that we were now in charge of my mother's money. Okay, we were in charge of the trust. And my mother in the car driving away said, I don't understand, why didn't Daddy just leave me the money outright? And none of us wanted to answer her, but I knew because I worked with my dad, and he used to say all the time, Nisi, when I die, your mother may sleep with other men, but they're not going to spend my money.
Oh, did you really say that? Oh my God! Wow. Okay.
Very Italian. Very much.
Very. Yeah.
So when I all of a sudden went out to work and make my own money, but my first marriage was totally unsuccessful because I didn't take charge of my own money. So I was single for 14 years, and guess what? I got really good at my own money.
Yeah.
So, but I just know that you have words of wisdom to help people, because I know I'm not the only one. I know there's so many women feel this way about money or haven't had a healthy relationship with it.
Right.
So please tell us how you got into this.
Yeah, who the heck am I? Well, so, a lot of people call me a financial therapist. I'm not a planner. I don't do investments.
Got it.
So when people say, well, money coach, what's a money coach? And so it's a little bit closer to financial therapy than financial planning.
I love it.
And money is emotional, right? I mean, so it's practical and emotional. If you take me, so I'm in my 50s, and boy, oh boy, what a road it's been through divorce, the whole 9 yards. So how I got started was that once upon a time, I was, a young economics major, right? But that's so, the whole right brain, left brain, so I wandered the earth like Cain for 5 years, for those of your listeners that remember Kung Fu, and decided that my heart was more into psychology than hardcore finance, right, and economics. So get this, I actually got a master's degree in transpersonal psychology and consciousness studies.
Fabulous.
So it's like, woohoo, here I am, a master's in consciousness, but I was so fascinated with money and the alternative psychological, emotional side of money. And, what do you do with this as a career? And so at the time, money coaching was brand new. There was really only one money coach in town, right? This was kind of mid 90s. Her name was Karen McCall. And I was like, I want to do what you do. And I just begged her to train me as a quote unquote money coach, even though nobody knew what the hell I was doing, right? Like, what are you doing? And so it was this field then, and now it's now a little bit more mature 25 years later, where, my specialty is working with women who they're tired of being stressed. They're tired of feeling anxious. And probably the number one thing I hear, Denise, is people call me up and say, number one, they're tired of being stressed and anxious about money. But number two, they say, I don't feel like I'm in control of my money.
Yes.
Like I'm sick of not feeling like I'm in the driver's seat of my own car.
That's right.
So, it's like all of this goes into absolutely the practical side. Yes, we'll totally go there. I mean, that's part of the money fog and getting clear, right? But to say money is not emotional, anyone who says money is not emotional, I am telling you, they must be a man.
And I'll tell you what else. I think they're lying. And I think they're in denial.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because it's emotional for plenty of men too, right? I mean, it looks different for men. But
it is different. And certainly, here's the difference. I mean, and when I'm with younger women, but they're married now, they may be raising children, which is a whole other category. Do you know what I mean? Because if you're at home raising a child, I mean, there's just so many elements for women. But men, when they're little, men say, "Oh, I'm going to grow up and have a job because I'll take care of my family, or I'll make money." So, as younger women that I'm close to, I say to them sometimes when they're in the midst of it, I'll say, "Does your husband have an insurance policy in case something happens to him tomorrow on the way to work?" Or I'll say to them, "Do you have any money socked away of your own in case he falls in love with the girl that's selling him shoes this afternoon?" And I'm always asking those I'm sure they think, "Jesus, what a weird woman." But in reality, since those are all the things that have happened to my friends when we were young.
I just got to say, you were right on. I mean, we all know that the divorce rate is at 50%. There is no one who doesn't know that stat. I'm sorry. That's a pretty out there common stat. But so if I was if I had a 50% chance of getting in a car accident, you better believe I'd have good insurance. If I had a 50% chance of an earthquake, I don't care how expensive earthquake insurance is.
That's right.
I get it, right? So, but it's hard, right? Because when you're married, we are so in love with our beloveds that we never see we're going to be part of that 50%. And so how do you walk the line between honoring love and your wonderful partner and going, but what if?
That's right.
And you've got to take care of yourself. You've got to take care of who you're going to be in the future. I would say any man worth his salt wants his wife or his girlfriend or, two women, whatever. There's so many different relationships nowadays, is going to want her to feel secure, and no matter what, know she's going to be okay if they do separate.
So well said. This is my second marriage. So we've been married almost 29 years. And it's been entirely different, but I'm a different person than I was at 20 when different woman than when I got married the first time. So the second time I had learned and also run my own business then for 15 years. And also negotiated with Hollywood producers for jobs, meaning for food styling and media work for them. So I got pretty good at it. Do you know what I mean? Because otherwise you realize that when you walk out of a lot of those offices, your back teeth were missing because they were looking for the gold fillings. So I got better at it. But are there ways, talk to me, Mikelann, how can women, so what if they're older, or they're even in their 50s, but they have never kind of been involved in the money. How do they start doing that?
How do they start doing it? Yeah. Well, and this is who I work with, right? I mean, the most common woman who calls me is in her 50s and says, "I'm sick of this. I'm sick of not feeling good." Right? I'm sick of not feeling, in control. Again, that comes up a lot. So where I always start is that one of the biggest causes of financial anxiety is feeling like you're in a money fog. Because, and here's why I think it gets interesting. A lot of the people that call me, Denise, they have financial planners. They have investment accounts. They have somebody who's doing something with their retirement, but they're still having a hard time sleeping and not feeling like, well, am I okay to go on vacation? Like, did I just screw up by spending $500 on the most insane, wonderful shoes that I want to wear without feeling guilty?
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, so I always start with, let's get out of the money fog, because the money fog simply means I don't know where my money's going or where it's coming from. And there's a lot of things that cause money fog. One of the biggest is so many people, Denise, have so many accounts. I'm a huge advocate of elegant simplicity.
Okay.
We literally just draw everything out in a money coaching session and go, okay, we, 2 checking accounts, 3 savings accounts, 7 credit cards, whatever the picture is, we just blob it all out on a piece of paper. And then we start drawing, like, and money goes from this account to this account to this account, and then it transfers to this account, and then I pay this from this account. And I always sit back and go, no wonder you're feeling a little stressed and foggy, So one strong idea for people is, the more accounts, the more credit cards you use, for example, the more money fog you're in. Because I don't care how smart you are, it just starts feeling like a shell game.
You are saying things that are so simple and so smart, and you're so right.
Yeah, and that's why I love calling it elegant simplicity, because I think sometimes we think that somehow the more complicated it is, wow, look at, we're pretty hot shit. Pardon me for swearing, but
don't worry about it.
I'm like, yeah, better clean up my early morning potty mouth here. But we think that we're really hot if we look, maybe we seem sophisticated, but the reality is, the more you've got moving around, first of all, you're spending a lot of time potentially managing it, or a lot of time ignoring it, or a lot of time being stressed about it, right? Yeah. So number one, I say, let's go elegant simplicity. Let's go, 1 primary checking account, and at the most, buckle your seatbelt, 2 credit cards. Whoa, and then from there we look at, and this is where people go, oh my gosh, she's going to make me track my money. But and people just, oh my goodness, they get so, their panties really get in a bunch about this. But, the reality is, wealthy people know where their money goes.
Yeah.
And more importantly than wealthy people that feel good and in control about money and don't think about money all the time with that free floating anxiety, they track their spending and their income. They know where it goes. They have a simplified way to do it. They don't hemorrhage time on it, but they know. And that's part of where the anxiety just, you just start exhaling. And people, when I've got clients at that stage, they're just shocked at how their heart rate starts coming down. There's no mystery.
That's right.
I mean, it's not the whole entire enchilada, because then we want to look at, where do you want your money to go?
Yes.
But most people don't know where it's going. So it's like their dollars are running around on them,
When you say this, Mikelann, this is something. My husband is a very organized personality. So he got on the online, like paying your car payment and everything online early on in the boat, early on in the street.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I wasn't, because I had a bookkeeper for my business. I just retired 3 years ago from my business. And so I had a bookkeeper that came. So she wrote checks and stuff. It was all great. Do you know what I mean? The system worked. And my job was to bring the money in. Do you see what I'm saying? So my job was to bring the money in, and that was fine. And I liked it. But I have to tell you, now I didn't have Mary. So Kenny put me on things getting paid, my car payment and my phone and stuff directly. Well, you know what? That used to make me anxious. I think, oh, but what if they take out too much, or that doesn't work, or how do I have to check on that stuff? You know what? Now I get my statement. I know where everything went. I know where the money goes. And now, you know what I mean? There's not these checks that haven't cashed or any of it. So when I go online to look at my bank balances, I know exactly how much money I have. Do you know what I mean? It's more control than I thought I was in control when I had a bookkeeper, but I wasn't in control, and I feel more in control.
Well, isn't that interesting? Yeah, because it's organized, it's simplified, it's right, it's right there. You got your finger on the pulse. I find that, and I'm not anti-bookkeepers. There's a lot of wonderful bookkeepers out there, but the question is, are we abdicating control? Are we abdicating responsibility? And sometimes we are using a bookkeeper to not look, have someone else.
See,
manage it.
I think that could not be more correct. You know, when you said that money's emotional, Mikelann, I said this. I had a girlfriend. She's a very dear friend, a childhood friend. Her mother just passed away. Now, the father went, her mother lived to be 98. Now, this is, of course, we all know, you know, people are living longer than they have. So her father, when her father died 40 years ago, there was a huge estate. Now there's almost no money left. But, and sad, but the mother was taken care of. I mean, you know, I said it could have been worse, but this was the part she said to me when we had been talking to another friend, who of course inherited a great deal of money. Friend number one said to me, "Oh, I can't believe that she and her brothers were fighting over the money. You know, oh, how horrible. That would never happen in my family." I said, "You didn't have any money to fight over." I said, friend number one, I said, "I don't know how to tell you this. You put a quarter on the table, everybody goes, okay, I'll take a nickel." I said, "You put $8-9 million on the table,
That's a conversation.
That's a conversation."
Yeah.
So, and I don't even think, and this is to me, Michael, I'm not talking about honesty or laws or anything. I think that there's so much emotions tied up in money that in relationships too, in men and women, which is why one of the biggest things that people fight about in their marriages is money.
Oh, it's, oh my goodness, it's so true. Yeah. And, you know, one of the things I read this, gosh, a million years ago, you know, because the whole thing about money and divorce is such a big topic.
Yes.
But one of the stressors is that women worry that they're not going to have enough money in the present for their children, for their family. Men worry that they're not going to have enough money for themselves in the future. And so there's two different issues there that the let's say conversations are all out fighting are about two different things, right? One person is thinking about children, the other person is thinking about them, but they're also fighting about two different time frames. Is there enough money now versus the future? And so you've got these two people that they're not, the conversation isn't even necessarily about the same thing, you know? So, and we all know that, well, we don't all know, so I'll just say this, half of all relationships are made up of opposite money personality types. There's, you know, so, you know, the whole, we love to marry our opposite.
Yes.
And opposites attract and blah, blah, blah. That's all lovely until money comes into it. And then, you know, there's a reason why this is a big subject in relationships.
Well said. You know, one of the reasons, see, my husband and I fight. We bicker. But we don't fight about money because we've had the same goals with money. Do you know what I mean? And it's more apparent now when COVID hit and we were home all day long together, Mikelann, I realized that I'd spent more time with him in that year than probably in the first 27 years.
Oh my gosh.
You know what I mean? I mean, we went on vacation and stuff together, but I'm just saying we saw each other every single day for 24 hours a day.
You marinated in your relationship.
Oh my God. And but money, we've always had our own money. Then we merged our money finally. I mean, we didn't merge our money for years. Do you know what I mean? Because we didn't. Yeah. But now, I mean, it's very interesting it's very interesting to me, the things I'm learning this late in life.
Oh, for sure. Well, and you know, here's the interesting thing about couples and money. You know, we often hear about like the spender marrying the saver, and you know, and again, that is half of all relationships. But the underlying motivation is, if you are a quote unquote spender personality, it just means you're highly motivated by freedom. And if you're a saver personality, you're highly motivated by security. It's not about money. It's about these underlying drives. And, you know, so when couples initially meet, that is just a sexy dynamic, right? It's like, oh my gosh, he's so secure. His feet are on the ground. He knows where he's going. And, oh, she's so vivacious. She's so exciting. I've never dropped everything at the drop of a hat and gone off and done this fun thing. I mean, it's such a beautiful thing that it's attraction, right? My thing with couples and money is I want to keep that attraction. It's not sexy to marry your clone.
You have just said something. A light just went on. Such a light bulb went on in my head. I can't stand it. I've never heard anyone describe it like that, but that is such, it also even tips into, and this is very interesting, my dynamics with my sisters and money, because since we were in charge then of my father's estate,
Uh-huh.
there's been so many dynamics, most of them okay, several unpleasant. Do you know what I mean? Because one of the reasons was my oldest sister, who always got to be the oldest sister and always wanted to be in charge and always wanted to be the boss. When all of a sudden all three of us had a voice, she wasn't real comfortable with that.
Ooh.
It was very interesting. Do you know what I mean?
I loved what you were saying when you weren't saying it.
That's right. And I remember, and then it was another, I mean, it's just interesting. When I was very young, but one of the reasons to stay on track, you said that. I have a sister that I don't know. It's just to me, because she was the saver. And one of the reasons, and that's fine. I mean, and it played into her personality, but Mikelann, when you go to her house, I'm revisiting all my old furniture or possessions. Okay. I gave her the couch. My other sister gave her the coffee table. My mother gave her the bed. My aunt paid for, I mean, the car she drives used to be one of our cars. Do you see what I'm saying? So,
well, there's a continuum, right? And it's like, there's nothing, extreme savers love to make spenders bad. But there's nothing wrong with being a quote unquote spender, and there's nothing wrong with being a saver. The problem comes when we're at the edges, when we're these extremes. Yes. And when you get into someone who's an extreme saver or very frugal, it's like they're almost afraid to spend money. And when you get into, if we just kind of dive into your poor sister's brain chemistry here for a moment, chances are when someone like that does spend money, they literally feel pain. Well, at the very, very edge in terms of that personality type. And so, why buy a couch when you can get a cast off?
That's right. She's not that bad, except one day when we were talking and something had happened. And she said to me, I'd just come home from a trip. She was sitting in my bedroom and she was seeing the things I had bought. And she said to me, some days I don't like you because you've had so much more fun with your money than I ever have.
Oh, so telling. And that's the freedom piece, right? That's the freedom.
To me, I thought, oh my God. And she said, yeah, you've always had more fun with your money. I thought, well, is it really my money or is it just that I've had more fun?
Well, that's a very telling. She really summed that up really well, because I think that, again, the saver does look at the spender and go, oh God, I wish I could just feel so free to do, whatever it is, go on vacation or do this or do that. So it is fascinating because, whether you're talking with you and your husband or you're looking at your family members, it does help to understand more and more about people's money personalities because you see it, right? It plays out in families all the time.
What do people, when women come to you, what's your goal? What's their goal? Mikelann, I'm sure some people you can help. I'm sure some people don't have a clue. How does that work? Kind of like, can you see progress in people?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. The talk, again, I know I'm like a broken record, but it's just because I hear it so darn much. Most people come in and they say, as a result of working with you, Mikelann, I want to feel good. I don't want to be stressed about money. I don't want to feel guilty. And then they'll say things like, I want to know what I can spend. It's my money, but I feel like I can't tell how much I can and can't and should and shouldn't spend. And I'm tired of feeling that way about my money. And so how do I do that? And, some people will have even more concrete goals like, okay, here's the dirty little secret. I'm carrying 30 grand in credit card debt. I want to get rid of that. Yes, I do work with people on net worth, all of that. We want to grow our savings and things like that. So when you very first dive in with people, I do dive in on what I would call the practical side, but you got to honor the emotions from the very, very, very beginning. We do start with, let's simplify. Let's look at where the money's going. And then let's look at, what would it be like if we put together a monthly spending plan? Like, I hate the word budget. I hate it. It sounds like a big fat diet. Nobody wants it, and it's so like, oh, who do I owe? What's left over for me? Nothing. I'm living life on leftovers. I mean, it just feels, but it's your money. So, my question is, where do you want it to go? What do you want to protect? And you can do anything you want. You just can't do everything you want. And so how do we discern that? And so the progress that people see is, the first thing is they stop feeling stressed.
Yes.
Then they start feeling more in control. Then they start, and again, debt is not everybody's issue, but it's pretty darn common, right? Then we're building up savings. I mean, it's interesting because some people come in, like I said, they may have retirement accounts, but it's like all the foundational stuff is missing. They might have the retirement account, but they have no safety net. They may have retirement accounts, but they're carrying credit card debt. They may have retirement accounts, but if the car blows up, they're in danger of not taking their trip to Hawaii or doing it and totally stressing out about it, So it's like that type of foundational stuff is so missing for so many of us. And when you add that in, people just breathe easier, Denise. They just breathe easier. And the big place where I'm driving for people is I want you to create the life that you love. I want you to create the life that you love. And money is a sacred tool, and we want it to be the sacred tool, not something that's controlling you.
Yes.
Stressing you out.
I wish, Michael, I had learned some of these lessons earlier in my life, but better when, you know what I mean?
Oh, now's the perfect time, right? Now's the perfect time.
Anytime is a good time. I know for me personally, and I say this to people, when I started my own business, that was fine. And I'd gone to an accountant who taught me to pay myself. So that was the first lesson in understanding that I have so many friends, they've been in business for years, they're not paying themselves.
Okay. Right.
So then that's where I think their money fog comes into, and their anxiety. I'll say, but well, how much do you pay yourself? Well, I couldn't take a check this month because, do you know what I mean? For whatever reason. I think, and then that, I used to teach business classes for caterers, Mikelann, because catering is a business, and all cooking, personal chefs, women in food are notorious for not making the same amount of money as men. Okay. For so many reasons. And most of them, it's this nurturing aspect. And they, you know what I mean? They don't hold themselves as in the same sacred position as men do.
Oh my gosh, Denise. In fact, I'm just finishing teaching an 8-week class on this exact subject of how to unlock your earning power for women, and the reasons why women undersell themselves. Whoo, that's a complicated one.
And then it all plays into their money. You undersell yourself, or you don't find yourself as valuable as other people in your industry for whatever reason. But if it's because you're a woman, do you know what I mean? I just think it's the double whammy. So when I started my own business, the great accountant said to me, you're going to have to pay yourself. And I did for years and years and years. And I had to give myself raises. And then I bought myself a new car. So the business paid for it. So I learned. But when I got better, Michael, and being clear about it, was when I had to sign paychecks for other people. Because that made me, when you're responsible for other people's income, it made me get much clearer about money. Do you know what I mean? And that's such a hard concept, because I have friends now that say, oh, I'd like a housekeeper, but I can't really afford it. And of course, I say to them, it's $100 a week. It's $100 a week too, because you're talking about, of course you can afford it. And in that time, you could be doing something else in your business that earns you more money. So why are you?
It's so true. I mean, women undersell themselves on average by about 30%.
Yes.
And they often don't know that they're doing it. They did this really interesting study where they had young men and women at a university go do a job. Doesn't actually matter what the job is. It could be weed the garden or do these essays, tutor in the library, whatever. So they come back, young men and women, and they're asked to self-evaluate. How well did you do the job? Good news. women do not think that we're doing a bad job. We self-evaluate our abilities equally to men. That's not the issue. But then the researcher said, okay, on a piece of paper, secret, we need you to come back and we're going to pay you this time. We really need more help. What do you think we should pay you if you come back and do the work? And so they write down all the numbers, right? And you know where it's going. All the young men said, well, I'll do it for you for about $100. And all the young women said, I'll do it for you for about 70. It was universal. The kicker is women don't know that they're all writing down numbers lower, smaller than the men sitting next to them. This is partly why it's such a complicated issue. We don't always know that we're shooting ourselves in the foot, but we're so worried about, is it okay to charge people for helping them? Exactly. Am I good enough to charge at the top? Are people going to think I'm greedy? I mean, the list is pretty long.
It's so long. Now, I know that on your website, all the information about you, Mikelann, I have one or two more questions, but I want to tell people in this middle, you have on your website, which is seattlemoneycoach.com, you have a free resource. It says free ebook.
Yeah, so I wrote an ebook called How to Stop Stressing About Money and Create a Life You Love. It's about 20 pages. It's totally free.
This afternoon.
Oh, yeah. I mean, again, talk about a broken record, but if I can help people with this free ebook on how to stop stressing about money, oh my goodness. So they can download it on my homepage, seattlemoneycoach.com. I mean, I've got clients all over the world, but I live in Seattle.
Yes.
And that's where you go to get it.
Honey, I think that is such a resource. If you had 3 little tips for someone who's listening to this, but just is still in the fog, and I know what would be the first, if the first one you told us was simplify.
I'm always going to put that up there. And number one, are there any credit cards that you can close? Can you operate with fewer accounts? I mean, don't close your long-standing credit card accounts for, your good old credit score, but is there anything that you can do to simplify, right? Number 2, do you want to consider looking at tracking where your money is going?
Great idea.
And then number 3, I always invite people to start journaling about their upbringing and history around money and really start honoring the fact that it's emotional. And I don't ever want anyone to feel bad for feeling that they're emotional about money. That I say, explore it, dive into it, and start journaling. What are your memories around money? What were your parents modeling to you? Because that's the thing. It's not just what your parents said. If it was that easy, we'd all be clear what our early programming was around money. A lot of it's modeling, right? Yes. I mean, if you grew up with your parents fighting about money, just as one quick example, that's unfortunately common. Yes. Chances are you don't feel good about money. The association is money is bad and stressful and causes conflict. Yes. So just spending a little bit of time talking with your girlfriends, going out for a martini with your friends and saying, how are you guys raised around money? Right? What's your memories around money? And because there is such a taboo, Denise, about talking about money.
Oh,
but women excel at relationship and they excel at exploring their emotions. And so if we can combine those, our relationship drive and our ability to access our emotions in such a beautiful way and say, okay, now let's talk about money. Your friends, you can have the most deep dive, juicy conversations that are really helpful.
That is such a great idea. And of course, you mentioned it. In food, this is an example. In women, cookbook authors, food stylists, not women in restaurants so much, but in catering has been predominantly women for years, because it really is an extension of the home. It's making food for somebody else that, you get into huge event planning companies and stuff. It was started by a woman. I mean, this is, and they grow and they succeed. But I used to go to women, this is in the 90s, when I would go to women's conferences and women's groups, and nobody would talk about money. There'd be a panel of the biggest food editors or the biggest cookbook authors. And if someone actually had the nerve to stand up and say, well, how much does that job pay? Yeah. people would say things like, oh, we're not really allowed to discuss that, or my NDA doesn't allow that. And I remember thinking, this is such horseshit. How can we help each other if people don't know what they should be charging, or how they can ask, or can they get that? Now, I had a man send me a text this morning as an example for a job representing a company. He hasn't written a book yet, but he's got an interesting blog. So he's like an influencer, not with huge numbers yet, but they want him to do some speaking about the product. And he had read something that I had written for a blog. And he said, I don't have any idea what to charge. And it's what his job would be. I know I've worked with celebrities get $75,000 for the morning, and I work with people that have gotten $2,500. Do you know what I mean? So, it was hard, but I just said to him, well, what do I think you need to get. He was telling me how many, the tours, how long it was going to take, and what he had to learn, and what he had to make some recipes for him. I said, you need $8,000, $10,000, $12,000 to cover your time if you just break it down into, oh, I had no idea. And it was he just said,
he called you. What a gift.
I know.
To be able to talk about it with you. That's the key.
He said to me, I didn't know who to ask. I said, well, no. And I said, and I need you to know, you're going to have to, he said, well, I'm not as well known as the other people they're speaking to and stuff like that. I said, then if I were you, I get the point. You already know what they want. It's chicken. What are your points about chicken? Get those 5 points, study them, time it right now, do it on an iPhone, do a TikTok about it, and show them that you can do the job. But I said, it's like anything else, but it was very interesting to me because I get more emails about what people should be charging, or what kind of advance should I be looking for? Because in our industry, nobody wants to tell anybody the truth.
Right. Well, and one of the things I love about younger women is younger women are breaking silence.
I hope so.
Are talking more about money and what they're earning and what they think jobs should be paying. And when they're leaving jobs, they're telling other people, this is what I think you should ask for if you take the job I just left, all that stuff. I love it. Right.
Me too.
But it's taken a while because generationally, I'm not raised with talking about money. You don't talk about money. You don't talk. And so, like you said, number one, what does this man need to charge to not resent doing the work? That's one of the things I always ask people. Let's start with what I call the resentment number, which is the bottom line. It's an emotional way of getting at the bottom line.
That's right.
And now, of course, we want him to have his happy number, right? But in between your resentment number and your happy number, let's think, what do you need to charge to cover your costs? This man's got to pay his mortgage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. To talk with people and unpack the number is such a gift, Denise. It is such a gift. And people will share their opinions, but we need to be willing to go out there and ask.
Unpack the number. Oh my God. The light bulb was going off again. I'd never heard it said like that, Mikelann, but I used to say to people, what you see caterers are famous for, women selling their services. So and food styling, writing a cookbook, people start out saying, oh, but I just want the experience. I said, let me tell you something. When you've cooked for 3 days, lug that crap all over town, and you find out that you didn't make any money, that glow of all that experience is gone because you can barely stand because your feet are so tired. Yeah. I said, and you call it yourself money. I used to say, and I also have one where people that wanted to hire me again, I didn't like them. I'd call it misery money. And I once in a while had clients say to me, do you charge me more than you charge other clients? And I'd say, of course not. But inside I'd say, yes, how'd you like that?
Hell yeah.
Better, But I think that's resentment, and unpack the number. That's a great way to say it because I can visualize unpacking the number that you need to get to.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's a suitcase. We got to unpack it. Part of it is the costs, right? Yeah. Part of it is what do I need to pay myself? Part of it is how much do I need to charge these people to not be irritated at working with them? There's, right. And ultimately you can charge whatever the market will bear. People don't always like to hear that. So, but you're not doing a pro bono business, or you are,
exactly right.
But I mean, and one of the things I had a group of women I was talking to about this, they'd never thought about it. I said, do not suppress your industry. I know you're thinking all about you.
Yes.
I can't charge this because I'm not good enough and I'm not this and I'm not that and I'm uncomfortable. But I said, if you're going to undersell yourself, what about all the other men and women in your industry? You're making it harder for everybody.
When do you have a newsletter that you do, or can people go to your website? Do you update it with like where you might be speaking?
Yes. Oh, you are so lovely to ask that. Yeah. So when they go to Seattle Money Coach, if they download that ebook, that will give them my once a month newsletter.
Okay.
And and that's great. And if people are loving on social media, then go to Seattle Money Coach, and I'm everywhere. Instagram and Pinterest, and probably ones that I didn't exist yesterday that exist today. But yeah, it's all Seattle Money Coach.
Well, all I know is I was grateful, Mikelann, that seriously, I was grateful that my first marriage was so unsuccessful financially that I wasn't going to make that mistake again. Do you know what I mean? And I didn't. And
there's a gift in that. There's a gift in that.
The gift. And, I always say to people, and I put my first husband through school forever and through dental school forever, which was part of our generation. Do you know what I mean? Everybody, and you'll work for 8 or 9 years, but then, he'll support you. Well, it didn't exactly work out like that.
Yeah.
Now, it only took 5 or 6 therapies to unpack that. But anyway, but I learned more about human nature, myself, other people, trust, honesty. I mean, I learned so many lessons from that made me a better person. And a better business person.
Oh, absolutely. And it's part of why when people get stressed about money, they beat themselves up for past mistakes, whether it's in the marriage or whether it's you name it, I've heard it. I hear everyone's money story, and I sold everything and when the market was down in 2009, and now I'm beating myself up that I don't have my house down payment, all sorts of things. And so when we don't forgive ourselves, it literally can cause health issues. It's like, we've got to forgive ourselves, because first of all, you've got your MBA in the School of Hard Knocks, right? And there's a learning. And my opinion is, I like to think of it as you have your own personal money story, and it is a rip-roaring good, fascinating tale full of twists and turns and all sorts of exciting things, and it's just part of the story. They're different chapters of our lives, and nobody has this perfect story. That's just silliness, right? That's us believing what people post on Facebook, which is just all the happy stuff.
So well said. And you had said that. I read that in one of the things I read about you about why it is so important to forgive our financial mistakes. This is huge.
It's really big. Yeah. Like I said, I was thinking about that client that, she had, a lot of money, and when the market fell, and this is a long time ago, but it's good for us to say now because people get nervous with the market. She panicked. And so she sold everything in, the bottom, as we now know, but you don't know what the bottom is when you're in the middle of it, of course, right? But the point is, Denise, she beat herself up for years for this money mistake. And as we looked at it, it meant that she had a smaller down payment. It did impact the course of her life. She ended up needing to buy a smaller home in a different town. But as we looked at the story of her life, she loved the town that she ended up moving to. She made wonderful friends in this town. She ended up marrying a man she met, so her story was full of a lot of interesting twists and turns, and actually a lot of wonderful things that she couldn't have predicted came out of that. But she was so fixated on the mistake I made. It's one twist and turn in a long life, and we all have them. And it's just part of our story.
Mikelann, I cannot thank you enough for your time today. This has been absolutely, you're delicious. You're, you're delicious to listen to. And I feel like, boom, there are several things. I'm mostly because with my relationships with my sisters, and thank God we're still friends and I love them both very much. One is a little more tenuous than the other, but you've helped me. You gave me a tool or two today that I could use just in you telling me what you have said today. I can't thank you enough.
I am so glad to talk with you today. It's just so fun to talk about all this stuff. I love it. Thank you. Thank you.
People will want to reach out to you, and they can at seattlemoneycoach.com and download the free resource book, the ebook that you've done, and get on your monthly newsletter. That's fantastic.
I love it. I think everyone can be happier and just create the life you love. That's what it's about. That's what it's about.
I thank you so much. Thank you, everyone that reaches out to us. Thank you, everyone that sends us notes. You reach us at womenbeyond@icloud.com. And I thank everyone that listens to us. And I thank our guests, because we should all be here helping each other. We'd be in a better world if we were. I thank you, Mikelann. This has just been, I'm telling you that I've made some notes. I'm going to use that verbiage with my sister.
Oh, how fun. I love it. Yeah. I hope your listeners enjoy it. I just love all of your podcasts. So it's just great stuff. I mean, this is the time of our lives, women of a certain age, where we're going into massive awesomeness and creativity. So this is
the truth. And we might as well have fun. I've decided when I retired, the first year was rough because I didn't know what to do with myself, and people don't tell you. And it wasn't a money issue. And all of a sudden, someone said to me the other day, she said, because she's in a different, but she's getting there. She said, so what's it feel like to not worry about the money? I said, I worry about the lamb chops. But I don't have the same worries, and it does free you up.
It does.
To really make the day that you want to have.
Well, and it makes us more creative. When we are stressed about money, it impacts our creativity. And, this is a time in our lives where we want to dive deep into creativity.
So well said. Thank you again. Thank you for everyone that listens. Thanks, Cindy, who keeps the train on the track. I say it every time, but it's true. And I thank you again, Mikelann. And you have to come back, because we're in these financial things right now going on. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, so many juicy subjects for us to hit. For sure.
I hope you will come back and talk to us again, because so much good information. And I know that there are women that will listen to it out there in our audience that are going to say, oh my God, I never thought of it like that.
Amen.